Welcome to Everyday Simple Somatics, a podcast dedicated to helping you find healing through your body's natural wisdom. My name's Dr. Christine Baker, and I'll be your host. So, this week's episode is in a series of episodes specifically designed for getting you through the holidays. And so I thought we'd have a festive background instead of my boring office that we always have. And today we are going to be talking all about that experience of being so excited about the work that you're doing in therapy or in your healing journey, and then just feeling like your family does not get it. So maybe you've even tried to explain your therapy work to your family just to see their eyes glaze over. Or maybe you set a boundary with your family based on what you've been learning in therapy to have someone say something like, "You've changed," or "Why are you being so sensitive?" or "Therapy is just making you more difficult than you were before." And so if you are doing some deep healing work, whether that be therapy, somatic practices, 12-step recovery, whatever that path looks like for you, and the people around you don't get it, I want you to know something. And I can speak, I feel like, pretty confidently on this because I've been a therapist for so long. You are not alone. I'm telling you, the months of December and January are spent so often in therapy offices talking about how my family just doesn't get me. And they don't have excitement over the things that I'm excited about as I am healing. And that is a painful reality. Sometimes the people we love most, our family, our oldest friends, they don't understand the healing work that we've been doing. Sometimes they're maybe even threatened by it. Sometimes they minimize it. Sometimes they may actively push back against the changes that they see in us. But here's what I've learned, both personally and professionally. Your healing does not require anyone else's approval to be valid. What you're doing matters, even if no one in your family gets it. And so today, I want to teach you a practice that is all about staying grounded in your truth, your excitement, your protection of what is precious to you about your healing journey, even when the people that you love don't understand it. And so for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. Christine Baker. I am a licensed professional counselor with 13 years of experience in the field of trauma recovery. I'm also a somatic experiencing practitioner, which just means that I'm a person that believes strongly that mental health healing comes through addressing the stuck places in the body, specifically the nervous system. And that is exactly where this podcast comes from. My hope is that these short episodes will offer you practical skills to build into nervous system rhythms in your life. You may have noticed this when you look at the episode list. Each episode is a symptom-based episode. And so really you can just kind of scan through and then take whatever that practice is in that episode and start to create a rhythm. Maybe start doing it right after you brush your teeth or right before bed so that you become a person that is regularly caring for your nervous system as a part of your daily life. And if this resonates with you or feels exciting to learn more about, I'd love to invite you to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're currently watching or listening. All of those little clicks really do help other people find this content, and I so appreciate it. So let's talk for a second about what is actually happening when family doesn't understand your healing journey. First, like I said earlier, I just want to normalize this experience. It is so common. In fact, unfortunately, I'd say it's more common for families to struggle with someone's healing work than it is for them to be immediately supportive. There are a few reasons for that. Families are in systems, and when one person in the system starts to heal and change, it disrupts the entire system. The roles that people have played, the dynamics that have been in place for decades, all of that gets challenged when you start setting boundaries, speaking your truth, or no longer participating in the patterns that you used to. And so your family members might experience your healing as a criticism of them or how they raised you, a threat to the family narrative of we're fine, we're happy, we're good, an inconvenience because your new boundaries require them to change, maybe confusing because you're not acting like the person that they've always known, maybe even scary because if you can change, maybe they have to look at their own stuff. Because the reality is healing from trauma often means we have to renegotiate our relationship with our past and with the people that were a part of our past. And that renegotiation is not always welcomed. So you might hear things like, you're just dwelling on the past. You used to be so easygoing. Now you're so serious. Not everything is about trauma, I think your therapist is putting ideas in your head. You're making problems where there aren't any. How many of us have heard some of these? My goodness, right? And here's what makes that so hard. These comments often come from people that you love, people whose approval you've sought your whole life, people who you wish could celebrate this work with you. And so it's just deflating, right? One of my students in the Somatic Wellness Collective shared something really powerful. She said that after about a year of therapy and somatic work, she went home for the holidays feeling really good about her progress. She'd been working on speaking up more, setting boundaries, not over functioning and overdoing for everyone else. And on that first day that she was home, her mom said to her, "I don't know what this therapist is doing to you, but I want my daughter back." She said it felt like a gut punch. Like all of this hard work she'd been doing was dismissed as if she was being brainwashed or something. So then she found herself in this terrible position of either defending her healing journey, which felt exhausting and kind of like she was asking permission to be okay, or just shrinking back into those old patterns to keep the peace. That is exactly the bind that so many of us find ourselves in over the holidays, and it's exactly why we need somatic tools to help us stay grounded in our own truth, our own excitement, even when others don't validate it. So let's jump into our practice. This is kind of a cheesy metaphor, but it actually helps me a lot. So we're going to call this practice guarding the flame. Okay. So the metaphor here is that your healing journey is like this small, precious flame that you're tending to. It's yours. You're the one nurturing it. And it's small, right? Like it's a flicker. It's starting to grow. I say this to my team at work all the time when we're talking about nervous system work, is that so often we're just fanning the flame of the resource, whatever that might be. And so, yeah, depending on where you are in your healing journey will kind of depend on how big or small that flame is. And so we need to protect it from wind that might blow it out, even if that wind comes from people that we love. And so I think that this practice has both a kind of visualization component using this metaphor, but then obviously this is a somatic podcast. It has a physical component as well. And you can do it before going into situations where your healing work might be questioned or minimized, or you could even do it in the moment when you're feeling that pressure to kind of defend or shrink. And so the first step is I want you to take a moment and think about your healing journey, not the hard parts, not the trauma that you're healing from, just the journey itself. Think about the courage it took you to start the journey, the things you've learned about yourself, the ways that you're different now, the boundaries that you've set, the self-awareness that you've gained, the relationship that you're building with yourself and maybe even your body for the first time. And then once you've kind of reviewed that journey, I'd love to invite you to just place a hand or both hands on your heart. Kind of feel your chest rise and fall with your breath. And then I'd love to invite you to say this either silently or out loud. This is mine. This is precious. This matters. Almost like that hand is just protecting and nurturing that little flame, right? And you might feel some emotion here, and that's okay. You might feel protective energy, like some fight energy of the work that you're doing. That's okay too. Just notice whatever it is that comes up as you acknowledge how important this journey is to you. And then the second part is I want you to imagine that your healing work, all of this that you've just kind of reviewed in your mind, is represented by a flame. And so you can visualize that flame wherever it feels right in your body. Maybe you would feel it kind of in this heart space, maybe in your belly, maybe in your hands. There's no wrong place. And for me, when I do that, I actually notice like some warmth in my core. And you may or may not, either thing is fine. But I want you to just connect to that space in your body where you feel like that flame lives, representing all the things you're working towards, that authenticity, that connection to your body, those boundaries. And just take a moment to notice that flame. Oh, how big is it? What color is it? How does it move? Maybe try to just be with it for a moment. And then we are going to create some kind of physical gesture that represents protecting that flame. And so I think there's a few ways to do this. If it's kind of in this core area, you could do something as simple as like crossing your arms. So it kind of becomes like a shield over that space. You could even um, I was never a Girl Scout or anything, but I think about in movies where there's Boy Scouts and they have like that, that little kindling that's just starting to burn and they're kind of like holding it in a cup in their hands, like, and like blowing on it, trying to get it to get bigger and bigger. So you could even do something like that. You could like cup your hands in front of wherever you notice that flame in your body. So maybe your heart, maybe your belly, almost like you're holding that flame between your palms, really feeling into that space between your hands, noticing how your hands are kind of creating this shelter for this precious thing. And then you guys know I love this one. I use this all the time in this podcast. You could always do kind of hands on the core, so like hand on the heart, hand on the belly, kind of creating this sense of being anchored to yourself, connecting to your own body, your own knowing. It's like you're placing your hands on your center, that core truth. And so choose any of those gestures or one that feels right to you. And once you've chosen it, I want you to just hold this position and take some slow breaths. And as you exhale on those breaths, I want you to imagine that you're strengthening this protective boundary around your flame, around your healing work. Yeah, as I do this, I almost feel like with each exhale, like strength is coming into my arms and hands because I'm kind of doing that one, like holding over the core. Feels so nice. And so, still in this protective gesture, I want you to take a second. We're going to introduce a little bit of challenge here, okay? I want you to imagine that someone in your family or friend or, whoever you're worried about saying one of those kind of dismissive things to you, like you're being too sensitive. Why do you always make everything so complicated? Whatever it might be. And instead of defending or explaining or shrinking, I want you to practice an internal response. This is just for you. You don't have to say this out loud to anyone, but internally, you say something like, I'm not asking for permission, or my healing doesn't require your approval, or you don't have to understand. So, whatever phrase feels right to you, one of those or something else, I want you to say it a few times with your hands in this protective gesture. Feel your feet on the ground, feel the strength in your body. You're not being aggressive. You're not being defensive. You're just being clear with yourself about what matters. You're not trying to convince anyone else that it matters. You're being clear with yourself about what matters. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, you could take a second, kind of start to invite some movement back into your body if you haven't been. Maybe look around your space a little. And as you do that, I want to just close with a reminder. You can love your family or your friends or whoever that person is from your past and still do healing work they don't understand. You can have compassion for why they're threatened by your growth and still protect your boundaries. These things can coexist. You are not required to make everyone comfortable with your growth. So, next week, we are going to continue in our holiday series and talk about those times where you feel kind of disconnected from the holiday magic or the holiday joy. Because I think as you continue to heal and kind of get into this more authentic space, some of that performative happiness that may exist connected to the holidays isn't there anymore or doesn't feel right to you. So I want to give you some somatic tools for how to deal with that shift. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having the courage to do this piece of work, even when it feels lonely, even when you feel misunderstood, because what you're doing really does matter. And so as we close, I just want to remind you, your body has innate wisdom. All we have to do is learn how to listen to it. And that's what I'm here for. I'll see you next time.